Caroline, what do we know about the disruptions that are likely to impact France today?
Tom, it is the first day of the general strike against this pension reform announced by Emmanuel Macron last week. And it is, according to the transport minister, going to be a very painful day for the French. We expect disruptions in public transport, in schools, in hospitals, oil refineries, or even nuclear sites. To give you some example, for the TGV high-speed trains, there will be 1 in 3 maximum across the country. Some metro lines will be totally closed, some only open at rush hour. For those who have children, it is a very difficult day as well, because 70% of primary school teachers are striking today. To give you an example, for example, in Paris, at least 1/4 of the schools are completely closed. In other schools, there will be a minimum service for those who cannot do without having their kids at school. So a lot of disruptions also in oil refineries. One day of strike. The CGT has one for more strikes in oil refineries. So you already have some French who have been queuing to fill their tanks because they have been traumatized by the last refinery strike last fall. And finally, so in terms of electricity production, the CGT union has said that there will be reduced electricity production today, equivalent to about twice the consumption of Paris. And finally, this afternoon, of course, everyone will be protesting, marching in the streets. I'm going to go check out the protests in Paris this afternoon, and unions are targeting at least 1 million people in the street.
At least 1 million people in the street. And this is coordinated action between the unions. And as you say, and as you illustrate, across multiple different sectors. This was their threat before this reform was announced. What does it mean for Macron? Will he back down?
It really depends on the numbers, actually. So if there are more than 1 million people in the streets today, it will be a victory for the unions. If it is less, it will be a victory for the government. But when you think about it, about 2/3 of the French people are opposed to raising the retirement age. But that doesn't mean that everyone will, of course, descend in the streets and protest. So really it depends on whether there are a lot of this opposed to this reform actually descend on the streets, whether you will see more strikes over the next weeks and months. You know, in the past, a lot of French presidents have actually tried to reform the pension system. Some of those have succeeded, including Nicolas Sarkozy, for example, who managed to rise the retirement age in 2010 from 60 to 62 years old. But some have failed, and the most famous example of all is 1995 under President Jacques Chirac. You had so many people in the streets, more than 2 million for 3 weeks, that the government had to back down and abandon his pension reform.